So today I'm going to be doing a talk on growth and adaptation, my start of my tech career. So I'm going to give a quick 101 on me, just to go through the agenda. And then for each kind of major step in my career, I'm hoping to highlight the development goals or hopes I had for those roles as I entered them, the lessons I learned in those roles, and the reasons I decided to move on from those roles. So what was my motivating factor in leaving one team and going to another. And then I'm going to wrap up my presentation with my overall thoughts on my biggest takeaways and lessons learned from my career thus far. Much more learning to be done still. Okay, so this is me. Instead of diving right into technical things, I thought I'd tell you some fun facts about me first so you get to know me a little bit. My favorite color is green. This kind of green though, not primary green, not forest green. I like this kind of like teal sea green. I also grew up as an expat. So I started my life learning how to adapt. My dad also worked in the oil and gas industry, and so with his career, our whole family moved around a lot when we were children. So I had the unique opportunity to live in a bunch of different countries. I went to international schools. I met a lot of people who had different cultural backgrounds and had different upbringings, and it was a really amazing journey and start to my life. My favorite season is fall. I like the smell in the air, and I like the crunch of the leaves under my feet. And finally, and most importantly, I have the world's cutest dog. His name is Charlie. He's turning 6 in April, and if you're ever at Cold Garden in BC, yes, you can pet him. So a bit more technical. Like Nicholas mentioned, I have a degree in computer science from the University of Victoria. I have about 13 years of professional work experience, and my focus was in data management, data quality, and data governance. I did want to call out, I know that this group is called Untapped Energy, so my take is kind of that people here are working or have experience in the energy industry. Does anyone here work in energy right now? Oil and gas, energy related? Yeah, a few people? Awesome. And are other people working in technology already? Sweet, cool. Okay, so we have some diverse backgrounds, and that's really great, because I do believe that, like, even though we might have had different experiences in our careers so far, or starting our careers, we all just have a curiosity about potential for new opportunities and new paths that we could take, and that's my take on why we're all here today. So I'm going to really try and tie my presentation into that, the curiosity and the opportunity for new things. So we'll start with my oil and gas career. A dozen years of growth and opportunity. So I started off in my first long-term role in IT. I was a master data analyst, and my initial goals, like many people first starting off my career, was to get my foot in the door. I wanted the opportunity to have a job and to earn some money. But with that, I was really hoping in my first role to learn what the role was, learn what the job entailed, and maybe learn a little bit about a big corporate office. I also was hoping to understand. I wanted to understand the history of the team, understand the data we were working with, and understand, in a naive way, the bigger picture of how our company worked, which I will say in my first role, I didn't quite achieve. And then I was also hoping to enhance. I knew I had some really cool understanding from my computer science background, and I was starting off in a really entry role, and so I knew that there was probably going to be opportunities for me to stand out and shine. How can I leverage the skills, the logical way of thinking that I had from my comp sci degree and make myself stand out and make a change in the company? You know, young, gumption, I wanted to do amazing things. So my initial tasks, for those of you who are maybe just starting out in like a tech industry, I know we have a couple people who are maybe finishing school and looking to go into data. I did a lot of data validation and data entry. It was really entry-level work. We worked in an SAP enterprise system. It was really interesting. Our team had the unique opportunity, due to segregation of duty, to actually have back-end access. So the reason we did all the data entry was to make sure that there was separate functions so that no one could be nefarious in the system and be like, oh, I work in finance, I'm also going to set up this account to pay a vendor, but it's actually me. So you had these segregations, and that's what this team was for. So we got to do a lot of different things for a lot of different functions of the company. We worked with vendors, materials, equipment, functional locations, cost objects. We had all this data coming to us, but very little context. But we had great procedures, great validation steps. So the process was there to make sure that we did our job well. The really interesting thing about this role is that later in my career in this company, I helped with a robotics automation project that helped automate these workflows. The procedures were set up in such a way and the validation steps were so logical that we were actually able to take some modern technology later on and propose automation for some of these steps. Not fully, there's obviously going to be exceptions in anything, but we were able to enhance the company later on through a modern tech platform, which was really interesting. So I did kind of data entry for a while, and then I eventually moved within the same team into a more technical role. So I started doing data quality inspections, using SQL queries, writing enhanced ad hoc reports for leadership groups that maybe didn't need them on a regular basis, but they were going to be very valuable for the short term. I was also able to leverage some customized scripts within that SAP enterprise environment, writing LSMW scripts to do batch uploads when we were doing these data correction works. And so I got to expose myself to a little bit more technology within this role, within this team that I had first joined, which was really interesting. And then once I had been there for about 3 years, I started to look outside of the scope of the role. I felt comfortable enough to start pushing some boundaries and start seeing how I could actually enhance the work. So I taught myself VBA, which maybe some of you know, it's a very simple Visual Basic language. And it worked really well with the suite of products we had at my oil and gas company, because Microsoft Office everyone has. And so with that, I was able to actually start automating little bits of procedures that we did. So repetitive tasks, I could actually automate that for my entire team, which was really fun and really interesting for me. It kind of engaged my mind in a way that I had only been able to do in dribs and drabs before, which I really enjoyed. And so I did all of these enhancements, automated things, got like the star on my shirt because I was standing out just like I was hoping I could. And then even after that, I started to feel like I had hit my bounds for this role. And I started thinking about my first move. So how could I stretch my wings more? How could I understand? I had been working at the company for about 4 years at this point, and working with all of this interesting data that kind of fed the fires that ran our company, but I still couldn't tell you how we got oil out of the ground. If someone asked me how we did that, I would have been like, we dig it? I don't know. And so I was looking for the opportunity to figure out and work in the operations side. What do we do? How do we do it? And one of my biggest learnings was through engagement with my leader when I said, I want to move on to a new team. And what he told me was, you've made yourself invaluable. You've created these automations, you've done these enhancements, and no one else can sustain them for us, and we need them for our team. For me to let you go, you need to become redundant. And I was like, what? I've worked so hard to become so special. But I really wanted the new opportunity. And so I started to build a training program. There was a couple other people in this technical niche in this group, and we started developing training to upskill on SQL and get SQL certifications. I trained them from like my own self-taught VBA for Dummies book, how to maintain and enhance the VBA scripts I had built. And I actually enabled them to become more tech-enabled themselves, which then enabled me to start actively networking within my company to try and find that next opportunity for me. So I did. I started networking. I looked at job postings internally in the company for something in the operations side. And I was really fortunate and able to find a team, like many teams, that had data in operations. And so I moved over to geology and geophysics, and I was a data management analyst there. Now, interestingly, you may have heard, I didn't have a G&G background. So I had no idea what was going on around me. I was really excited for this opportunity, and I really wanted to develop and understand what we did as a company. So what's our core business? Like I said, how do we get oil out of the ground? But I needed to, once again, I needed to learn, and I needed to understand what this part of the company did. So I asked a lot of questions. I was very humble and very honest with my peers who had worked in this part of the company, supporting this part of the business for a long time. And I just bombarded them. And questions, like I was like that 5-year-old, but why? I don't understand, why? What does this acronym mean? And why are there all these squiggly lines on everybody's screens? And slowly, I was able to understand and learn and perform my day-to-day job. So I got help with the winter drilling program, which for anyone who's worked in oil and gas, this was with an in-situ function, so like our land-on-land assets. That's where all the squiggly lines come from, which apparently people can look at and tell you how much oil we have in the ground, which is a skill I still don't have, but I don't need it. Anyway, so I got to understand that. I got to learn about the AER, the Alberta Energy Regulators, and what we submit to them and why we submit to them. And through questions and talking to my peers who are geniuses in every department I've worked in, I work with very smart people, I was able to understand what I was doing and enhance. So I took those skills I learned from my first job and I leveraged my Visual Basic. It's amazing how these simple tools can do so much for you. I automated part of the QC program for our winter drilling, so translating our LAS files into like consumable function to be able to go against all these QC things we need for AER submission, and have like a really nice visualization that says, yep, this one's good, that one the KV's off. And give that feedback in a more timely manner to our vendors who are doing our winter drilling program. So really great opportunities, really great learnings. And I was also able, during my time with that team, we did a system change. So I was able to do a system ETL. So working on cleanup, archival of data, translation of data, reformatting of data, and really take my data analytics that I had from looking at the quality in my last role and convert that and analyze it and really work on that in a great way. So I spent about 3+ years in this team. It was really interesting. I did eventually vaguely understand how we got oil out of the ground in our in-situ faction only. And I was really loving it. But at this point, I had been working for 7 or 8 years, and I was trying to think broader about where I wanted my career to go. Did I want to be a technical SME for the rest of my life? Did I want to go into leadership? I wasn't quite clear on that yet, but I started to talk to my boss about how I would have those conversations with people who were in bigger leadership functions and how I could understand what steps I would need to take to get there if that was a path I wanted to go down. Really fortunate, my oil and gas company has a lot of opportunities and are really good with networking and mentorship, and I'm very thankful for that. So I was able to network and talk to some directors at our company and say, look, if leadership is in my future, what do I need to understand? Here's what I've done so far. I'm interested in strategy. I'm interested in being at the table and understanding our long-term roadmap and how that's coming to be something. And I got a lot of feedback around, you need to understand the budget. Do you have any interest in becoming an accountant? No, absolutely not. But I did have an interest in understanding the budget and understanding how people work with money at the company. So once again, I went to our portal, our internal job portal, and started networking. Started looking up names, asking people to go for coffee, and found a really neat opportunity. Once again, data's everywhere. And if my clicker works, I will tell you I moved into finance. When in doubt, hit the button. And so I got a really neat opportunity in our finance department. I wasn't building the budgets, but I was working with all of our financial data. In another quick turn back, I was now the team that was creating the request that's sent to my original group. So I was now reworking with some people from my original team. So I was sending them the requests to make new cost objects, to update our GLs, to remove this cost center from the system because we didn't need it anymore, and they were then performing their validation function. This was right before the time that we started this robotics process. And so I got to like reconnect with some of my old peers, which was really fun. But I was in finance, and so I was looking to upskill on my financial acumen. How does cash flow work? How does budgeting work? What are people doing when at the tables trying to make these decisions around buying a license, picking a vendor, building a team, and headcount. And I was learning a lot. But once again, you may have heard, I also didn't have an accounting background. So I really took the time to learn and to understand what I was doing and what I was working in. So great peers, again, I will say finance was the friendliest department I worked in. My first day being there, anyone who walked by and saw my new face was like, oh hi, I'm Bob, I do this. If you have any questions, come and ask me, I'm just down the hall. And it was amazing. And questions I did ask, just like I did in geology and geophysics. And so I took the time to learn and to understand. I worked with some really neat frameworks here. I got to kind of take ownership over our delegation of authority control framework. I got to be a project leader for the framework revamp that we did a couple years into my tenure in the finance department, which was amazing. I got to engage with all different parts of the company around that control framework and say, how do you leverage this? How do you use delegation of authority in your function, in your department? Which of these controls apply to you, and how can we make this better to interpret, better to understand, and simplify it? Because it had literally over 10 years just become this mammoth beast of a control framework, and we had never taken the opportunity to go back and relook at it. And so I was really fortunate to be given some of the project leadership around that task, and find a new way to make it better, engage with people to figure out how they used it, and really have those conversations across the business to see how we can make things better through simplification. And then, like I said, I was part of a robotics automation program with this team as well. So thinking strategically and logically around business processes and how we can leverage a modern tool to automate those steps so that things are more consistent, things are more sustainable and scalable. All of it was really interesting and gave me really neat opportunities to dip my toe into leadership and to have broader ownership over some tasks. And once I had the taste of that, I knew it was something I wanted. And so after, at this point, I had been working at Suncor for a fair many years, and I started to look at opportunities external to the company for the first time. So knowing that I wanted to have thoughts of broader ownership over my day-to-day role. I would say oil and gas is an amazing place to work, but there are departments for everything and there are roles for everything. So your scope typically is quite narrow from my perspective. And I really wanted to be able to have my fingers in more jars, to be able to have a bigger box to work within and to look outside of. And so that was one of the things I was looking for when I started networking for my next opportunity, is where can I have more ownership? Where can I be involved in more things? And where might there be other leadership opportunities or easier opportunities for growth into leadership? So I started networking. I actually was seeing a lot about NEO on LinkedIn. And so I just scavenged LinkedIn. And I was looking for people who worked there and their titles, and bombarded my now boss, who's in the audience here today, Andrew Nippard. And I said, hey, you look cool. Do you want to come for a coffee and tell me about your company? And we did. We met. We chatted for like an hour or something. I told him about my background and what I was looking for, and he told me about NEO and the opportunities that there would be here. And it seemed like a really good fit. There wasn't a perfect role for me at the moment, but he said, keep your eyes posted. We're broadening our scope in data and analytics, and I think there'll be a good role for you in the new year. And so I did. I will say I did talk to other companies before coming to NEO. I went down interview paths and even had other job offers, and nothing else felt perfectly right. Either the timing was a little bit off, some of that was happening during COVID, and just like jumping to a new company in COVID time seemed a little risky, the unknown. But NEO just seemed to hit all the boxes I was looking for. Really exciting company, amazing vision, and so I jumped on unicorn. That was my favorite animation in the slides. So, but I will say it was scary. This was my first time leaving the company I had worked in for over a decade. I was losing all of that reputational faith that I had from jumping into different departments. This was my first startup. This is my first core tech company. Like, oh my gosh, crazy. But here I am now. I'm the data governance lead at NEO Financial. It's very exciting. My goals when I joined this, like I said, was to have more ownership, have a bigger stake at the table, and that's what I'm doing. We're building a great foundation here within the data and analytics group for data governance. I'm starting to build a team. Just waving to Josh, one of my team members. And we're taking on the fintech industry. We're taking on banking. It hasn't been easy. I came in day one and it was like my first day in computer science. People were speaking and I was pretty sure I knew the language, but nothing made sense. So like my first day in computer science, where like most people were like had an interest beforehand, and I was just like, oh, this could be interesting. I came into NEO Financial and people were like, blah, 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 blah. No idea. I felt like a complete novice, like a complete noob. But I asked a lot of good questions, and people care. Just like every job I've had, people really care, and if you show a genuine interest, they're gonna give you the time and help you understand. So even though I was intimidated, and I quickly had to upskill on a whole new tech platform that I had never heard of, let alone worked in, new languages, I found some success already. I've been here less than a year, and we're having the data governance ball rolling. We have content and metadata management working on our embedded platforms. We're working on data quality profiling, data security standards, and everything else. And a lot of that's because I was able to bring my knowledge from my previous experience and leverage that here. So I found my gap. I'm filling an area of void that they had. And so while people are helping me upskill and advance my technology capabilities, I'm helping them understand why certain things are important and how we can be doing things differently to make education and understanding better across the company. But I'm continuing to grow. So looking forward, I'm still hoping to become a better leader, to help develop other people the way I've been developed throughout my career. I'm really excited about the data governance platform that we're building, vetting vendors, working on an active engagement content metadata management system, and having the entire company buy in. So trying not to just leverage through a small team, but having engagement throughout the company and have people understand what makes me tick and what makes me excited should also make them excited. Personal bias. And I'm also really trying to upskill here. I've never worked for a financial institution, so not only am I upskilling on my tech side, but I'm also trying to upskill in terms of what are the regulations, what are the different audit controls and legal frameworks that, as someone who works with data security and with a lot of data, I should know and understand so that I can help better leverage us, so that we can pass our audits in a breeze, so that we can be data informed and really speak to how secure our platforms are. So that's been my journey so far, and I just wanted to end with a couple tips that I think have been really key for my career that hopefully resonate with you guys as well. So the first one would be ask yourself why. If you're looking for new opportunities, if you're looking for new challenges, really understand your motivating factors. Obviously myself looking back, I could make this perfect and like line it up with everything. And I like to think that I was in the moment trying to be that purposeful in my changes. But I think it's really important to figure out if you're looking for a new role, if you're looking for a new opportunity, why are you looking for that? What's this role going to give to you? Obviously you're going to succeed in anything that you do. You're here, you're curious, you're engaged. So you're going to excel at anything you do, but what can the company give to you as well? Whether it's in a different department in the company you currently work for or a company external. How are they going to help you grow? And timing. Timing isn't everything, but sometimes it is. So maybe now you're feeling like, oh, it's still too soon, but maybe it's not. Maybe the perfect opportunity is there. Or maybe you're feeling like it has to be now, but maybe now isn't the right time and the opportunity isn't right. So don't just jump because you can. Make sure it's purposeful. Discomfort is development. I feel like imposter syndrome isn't just a unique thing to one person. I think it's a pandemic. I think everyone feels like an imposter, maybe not every day, but at some point in their careers or at some point every year. Some people are just better at hiding it. And I think it keeps you humble. So it keeps you asking questions and keeps you looking for ways that you can be a better person. So I would say instead of letting that, if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, instead of letting that kind of hold you back, let that fear enhance you. Let that make you question things and help you understand things better, because you're only going to grow from that. That discomfort is you growing. I would also say for those of us who work in tech or those who are thinking to get into tech, as tech changes at such a rapid pace, regardless of what part of technology you work in, you're always learning. Our senior developers are getting new libraries and new packages and new code bases that they're having to understand and implement. They're not experts in those when they come out. So they're learning quickly, they're adapting and they're changing, just like you are if you're starting your tech career, if you're starting in a new industry. You're adapting, you're learning. Everyone is always upskilling and developing, so you're never alone. So don't be afraid. Finally, network. Network, network, network. ABN, always be networking. That's my biggest takeaway. I think there's never a wrong time to network. And there's never a wrong purpose. If you're networking for a job, if you're networking inside your company to get buy-in, to get friends, to get people who can support you when you're in a meeting room trying to present something, networking is never a bad thing. If you've just had an interview and you think it went great, you should still be networking, because you never know if the next opportunity is going to be better. If you've just landed a job, you should be networking internally, externally. Having a broader community is never going to hurt you, and having the people know your name and know your background is never going to hurt you. It's only going to help you in your career. So I think I talked about it a lot. I networked throughout my entire career. I'm still networking now. I'm here, happy to meet all of you and learn about what you're doing, what you're working with, what your opportunities are, because I think it's important. We're all in this together, and hopefully we can all find each other the best opportunities or the best support internally for your goals.